Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a video talking about how I found out I was pregnant with my second baby. So if you're new around here, I am currently 28 weeks pregnant with my second baby girl. I am due July 23rd, and I have been documenting my pregnancy here on YouTube for about 4 weeks now, I think. And so I thought I would just talk about how I found out I was pregnant with this baby because I think it's a pretty interesting story and I want to be able to remember it and look back on this one day. So we will start with the very beginning. So my husband and I got married in August, and we knew that we wanted our kids to be as close in age as possible, so that would mean we needed to start trying ASAP. And Ella turned 2 in September, so we knew that if we wanted them to be around 3 years apart or younger, we would have to start trying right away. So we started trying in September, and I became really obsessive with trying to conceive. I took ovulation tests, I downloaded the ovulation apps. I mean, I became like a psycho. I wanted to get pregnant so bad. With Ella, we didn't have to try. That's a story for another time. So I was new to this. I didn't really know what I was doing. October came around and it was time to test. Well, actually, it wasn't really time to test because I was testing way earlier than I should have been. But like I said, I was being crazy about it. So long story short, we got negative tests in October. I thought I was like miscarrying because it was really weird. My body was just being really weird. I wasn't bleeding like a normal period, and it was before my period was even due, and it was just like really heavy spotting, I would say, and it only lasted 3 days. And I get really heavy periods that are always consistent, and I bleed for weeks at a time because of my blood disorder. So I just had a weird feeling. I was like, this doesn't seem right, like something is going on. I don't know what it is, but I wasn't getting positive tests. And so I went to my doctor and got a blood test, and they were like, you're not pregnant. So I was like, okay. It was only 1 month of trying, but it really just, I don't know. I was just down in the dumps about it, and I think it was because I found out about Ella and it was a huge surprise. So I was like, well, if that was that easy and we weren't even trying, then why is this so hard? And like, I know it was only a month, and I know that people try for a very long time before they get pregnant. So I was just being crazy. But like I said, I think I was comparing it to Ella. We moved in October. It was a stressful time, and we both kind of agreed, like, I was so psycho last month. This month, like, let's not be psycho. Don't take ovulation tests. Don't track it, and just kind of be like a normal person. So we did that because I was already super stressed about moving and everything, you know, starting a new life 2 hours away from family. So that's what we decided to do. November comes around, and I just felt really weird. Like, can't really explain what I felt like. I just didn't feel like myself. I was starting to get some nausea, but I also read that could be signs of ovulation. I had a lot of symptoms that could have been either I was ovulating or I was pregnant. And I didn't want to become a psycho again, so I kind of just let my body do its thing. I was breaking out like crazy. What else? There was another weird thing. I was having like weird like lower cramps, and not contractions, but they were like cramps. And it felt like super stiff. It was weird. And I was reading, and it was like, oh, you're probably pregnant. So I took a few pregnancy tests, like 10, and they were all negative. And then about a week later, I started spotting again. And I was like, what the heck? Why am I spotting? Like, either get my period or no period. Like, this is too confusing. So I thought it was implantation bleeding, and it lasted a couple days. It lined up right where it should have lined up, and took a pregnancy test, and it was negative. But I just had this feeling that I was pregnant. So I decided to find a doctor out here because my doctor was 2 hours away and I wasn't gonna drive home. I thought that something was up. I didn't feel normal. I just wanted to get checked out by the doctor. But they wouldn't let me take a blood test without establishing care. So I had to go to like my initial appointment. She did all like the things that they're supposed to do when you first establish care. And then when she was kind of feeling around, she was like, you know, your like uterus area feels really stiff. I'm gonna send you for an ultrasound. Not because she thought I was pregnant though. She did not think I was pregnant. And I was like, okay. And I also asked her for a blood test, and she's like, I don't think you're pregnant. I think that you just had your period. I don't think it was spotting. I think it was your period. And I was like, okay, well, for peace of mind, can I just have a pregnancy test? So she sent me for a blood test, came back negative. A few days later, I went in for my ultrasound, and there was no baby in there, so I was like super bummed. And the ultrasound tech was like, all right, you're all good. The doctor looked at everything and I was good to go. So there was no explanation for that like stiffness she was feeling. I think the next day I get a call from the nurse and she's like, you know what, we saw something on your ultrasound, we're gonna need you to come in again. And I was like, oh my gosh, they saw a baby. Like, hello, duh, I was right. So I go in for another ultrasound and the doctor comes in and she's like, well, you know what, you have a cyst. And I was like, oh, so there's not a baby. She's like, no baby. You have a cyst on your ovary. We're gonna monitor it, but that is the explanation as to why you're probably breaking out, why you're having like all of these weird symptoms. It could be the reason why you're bleeding randomly, you know, all this stuff. So I'm like, okay, is this why I'm not getting pregnant? Like, can this cause issues for being pregnant? Because she made it seem like it was weird that I wasn't pregnant by the second month of like really trying, which that's not true because I know it can take people months and months. And anyway, she's like, if you don't get pregnant next month, come in and I will send you to a specialist. About a week later, I was driving around and I don't know what came over me, what happened, but something in me was like, go home and take a pregnancy test. It was so weird. And so I get home, I pull out like my ovulation pregnancy test kit. I had a kit from Amazon that had ovulation test and pregnancy test. So I actually did ovulation test and a pregnancy test because I was like, well, might as well see if I'm ovulating. I don't know, you guys, what it was because I literally just went to the doctor. I just had an ultrasound and blood test that told me I was not pregnant. Like, why on earth would I think I was pregnant? It was so weird. So I came home and I was like, yeah, I have to take a pregnancy test. Like, I don't know why, but my body, something in me is telling me that I need to take one. So I take a test and it was positive. And I'm like, what? Like, what is happening? Meanwhile, Tommy is downstairs, has no idea what I'm doing up there. He had the day off and he was about to go for an oil change. Like, I remember it perfectly right now. It was like it was yesterday. So it turns out that the one test I took was positive. And I was just like, this is so weird. Like, this is wrong. So I took another one, positive. Took another one, positive. Took one more and it was positive. And I'm like, this is, no. Like, these are just the cheap tests I bought. Like, this doesn't make sense. So I ran down the stairs like, Tommy! And he's like, what? What? I'm like, I'm pregnant. He's like, no, you're not, Lauren. You literally just went to the doctor's. And I was like, I know, but like, look, these are positive tests. And he was like, no, like, this doesn't make sense. And I'm like, I know it doesn't make sense, but look, like, these are positive. I have 4 of them and I have more upstairs. You want me to take more? And he's like, no, I mean, maybe you should call the doctor. And I was like, I'm not calling the other. I think I'm crazy. I was just there a week ago. And so he was like, okay, well, I'm gonna go get my oil change. Why don't you run to Walgreens and grab like expensive tests? And if those turn out positive, then we're gonna call the doctor and you're gonna go in for another blood test. So I was like, okay. Meanwhile, I called my mom and I'm like freaking out because I was obviously updating her on everything that was happening because I really wanted to have a baby. And then instead of getting pregnant, I found out that I have a cyst that could cause issues with fertility. So I was just like really down in the dumps and I put my mom in the loop because she's my mom. And, you know, finding out that I had a cyst was a little freaky even though everything was fine. So anyway, she kind of knew like everything that was happening. So I called her and I was like, Mom, this doesn't make any sense. She was like, well, I mean, maybe you are. Like, maybe you're too early to show up on blood tests or ultrasounds. So she's like, well, just go take another test. So I did. So I came home. I took both tests that I got from Walgreens. It was like I have them right here. It was a clear blue. And they all came out positive. Blown away. I mean, truly blown away. Because I just went to the doctor's. I just had an ultrasound. I had blood tests, like, and everything came back, you're not pregnant. So I'm like, great, I'm gonna call the doctors and they're gonna be like, this girl is out of her mind. Like, she wants to be pregnant so bad, now she's making up like positive tests. So I go in for a blood test. They had me go in that day, just went in, had my blood test, and they're like, all right, you should find out tomorrow. Well, I have like an online charting system or whatever through my hospital. So at about like 1 in the morning, I got an email that was like, you can check your my chart. So I log on, I check my chart, and I don't remember what my levels were, but maybe they were like 800 or something. I don't know. They were confirming that I was pregnant. So I like wake up Tommy 1 in the morning and I'm like, look, what does this mean? Because he's in the medical field. And he's like, oh my God, like you're pregnant. Oh my God, you're pregnant. And so I'm like crying, like freaking out, like how is this possible? How is this possible? I literally was just at the doctor's last week. Not even last week, it was a few days ago. And they showed me my uterus and there was nothing in there but a cyst on my ovaries. And he was like, I don't know, but you are, like, this is crazy. You're gonna have to go back and run another ultrasound, like maybe they missed it. Okay, so the next day the doctor calls me and they're like, well, yeah, you did test positive, but we're just not sure about it. We're gonna need you to come in just to make sure your levels are rising. So I'm like, okay. So I go in and they test my levels. The next day I get a call saying, okay, they're still rising, but we're gonna monitor this. Like, it's just very strange how this happened. We're gonna need you to come in one more time. So this was the week of Thanksgiving now. So this was happening, this all happened like the first few weeks of November. So this is about second week of me knowing that I was pregnant. And they wanted me to come in for my 3rd blood test. And we were going home for the weekend for Thanksgiving. So I went in and they took my blood. And then they called me the next day and they're like, okay, well, yeah, your levels are rising and everything, but you know, we don't know if this is going to be like a viable pregnancy. And I'm like, why? Like, why wouldn't it be? My levels are rising. What's wrong? And she's like, you know, it's just really weird how it happened. You were just in here a week ago with an ultrasound that had showed nothing, and you had blood tests previous to that, and you know, it was negative. So we just don't want you to like get all your hopes up. And I'm like, what is she talking about? Like, get all my hopes up. And she's like, just be prepared for a miscarriage or an ectopic or ectopic, I don't know how to say it, pregnancy. So this was like right before Thanksgiving. We wanted to tell our families, and basically I was like, I'm not telling anybody, because this nurse, doctor, they're telling me that I'm probably not pregnant, which was like really, it was hard to deal with. I wasn't feeling myself. I didn't want people to like know it and not be able to tell them. I wanted to tell people. I was excited. And then basically they were telling me like, just be prepared for a miscarriage. So basically she was like, okay, so if you start bleeding, like just went over everything that if I were to go through a miscarriage, or if it was like a tubal pregnancy, that I would have to be prepared for. Because apparently if it was like implanted in my tubes, you know, when it ruptures or whatever, it's like a very serious thing. So they want me to be prepared for that. So immediately my happiness went all the way down and I was just really sad. And they're like, we're gonna need you to come in for an ultrasound like after the holiday. So that Monday after the holiday, I was heading into my ultrasound, like just bummed, like, you know, going in there knowing that I probably wasn't gonna have this baby. Tommy had to work, my mom had to work, like I couldn't get anyone to go with me, so Ella came with me as emotional support. And I was freaking out. I really was freaking out because I don't know, I haven't had to go through something like that before, and it was like all this news of you have a cyst, and then I got confirmed I was pregnant, and now it's like, well, you're probably not pregnant, so be prepared for the worst. I had the ultrasound and I was watching the tech's face like I always do. And she wasn't showing anything, like she didn't look concerned or anything. And she's like, oh, like there's the baby. Like I see a gestational sac in the pole. And I'm like, what? Like already crying, I'm crying. She's like, yeah, I'm not allowed to say this, but I mean, it's in your uterus. She's like, I'm not gonna say anything else, so I'm just gonna tell you that. So the doctor comes in and she's like, just like, well, this is really weird how it happened. So, I mean, yeah, you're pregnant. And, you know, didn't seem happy or anything, just seemed kind of annoyed by me. So it was like a weird vibe she gave off. And she's like, yeah, you're pregnant, but you know, just really weird how this happened. And I wouldn't be too, like, don't plan ahead. So I'm like, so is there something wrong? Like, you think that I'm gonna have a miscarriage? And she's like, well, I'm just saying, like, it was really weird how you found out and how this all happened. You were just here a week ago and it wasn't here. And I'm like, well, okay, because I was reading that you can't see it. Like, it was so small at 5 weeks. Like, she was just like, yeah, so, you know, we'll have you come in a month. And I was like, I'm not coming back to you. You're rude. So I was like, okay, so I'm pregnant. It is confirmed that I'm pregnant. She's like, yeah, I think I was about 7 weeks, 6 weeks. I'm not sure. I can't remember. But they gave me a due date and all of that. So I came home and I was super, super happy. And yeah, I mean, it was just crazy because I knew, like I knew it, that I was pregnant all along. And I had everybody telling me that I wasn't. All my pregnancy tests telling me that I wasn't, but I was. Like I just knew it. So I just think it's like a cool story to tell my daughter one day. Both my girls have pretty interesting stories about how I found out. If we have a third, I don't know how they'll ever beat it. You have a mom gut, you have mom intuition for a reason. Always go with it. It has never failed me, from dealing with medical things with Ella to knowing that I was pregnant even though it was showing up everywhere that I wasn't. We're so excited to meet her. I can't believe that it's coming so soon, and I'm excited to see what other surprises she has in store for us. So thank you so much for watching. If you have any cool stories about how you found you were pregnant, let me know. I would love to hear them. So yeah, if you're new around here, I would love it if you would subscribe. I'm posting pregnancy updates every week, and I'll be doing some newborn hauls and all that fun stuff coming up. So would love it if you would subscribe and stick around. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and I will see you next time. Bye guys.